Oh, Christopher left. So, welcome everybody. We have Ernest Garrett with us today. I've known him for a very long time. We do have interpreters who are available. We have Mary and Keith. They are interpreters. And we also have captioning available for people. Also joining us today is Mary Ann Barnett. She's our transition coordinator. So, hello. Thank you, Ernest, for joining us today. How are you doing today? I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Yes, and we're happy that you could join us today. It's been a while since I've seen you and we've had a talk, but you've had some great advances in your career along the way. If you could please just give us a little bit more information about who you are and talk about yourself a little bit. So, yes, great. Again, my name is Ernest Garrett III. I sometimes go by Trey. But it's because my dad and my grandfather had the same name, and I am the third of the family to have that name. And I was born in Missouri, born and raised. I grew up in a mainstream schooling, and I always think it's important to emphasize that I was mainstreamed. However, my mainstream experience looked very different than what other people might experience with a mainstream school. There were many of us at my school who were also deaf, and so I wasn't the only one in my school. But when I was in seventh or eighth grade, my mom decided that we were going to move um, from pre-K to about, I want to say first grade. I was in a self-contained classroom with a teacher for the deaf and other deaf and hard of hearing students. And then fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, I was mainstreamed, which looked more like I was the only person. But then once I hit seventh grade, my parents wanted to give me more options. And so they had heard about another school that I could go to where they had a deaf and hard of hearing program. And we didn't know exactly what that looked like. So we took a tour of the school. It was the first time I'd really seen other deaf and hard of hearing students since about first or second grade. And I thought things looked all right. It looked pretty good, you know. That meeting that we had, we all sat around and talked about service needs and my IEP, and that I would need an interpreter. And I'd always had an FM system up until that point where, you know, I gave the microphone to the person who was talking, and it was very popular to give the microphone to people, to the teacher or whoever I was talking with. And now they were asking me if I wanted an interpreter. And I was like, an interpreter? What's an interpreter? And so they explained to me what the interpreter would do. And I said, no, thank you. That's all right. That's not what I need. And that was the first time though. And I learned early on because that's when I learned that I had a disability, that I was deaf. I had never identified as deaf before that. I'd always identified as being hard of hearing. And, you know, as an African American, a Black American, and sometimes you feel less, and I didn't really want any more labels. And the interpreter would have meant another label and that I was deaf, and I said no. And during that meeting, my parents said, he will have an interpreter, period. And I was like, oh, okay. So that really started the progress, and it really skyrocketed from there, where I learned about being a deaf and hard of hearing student. And I got a different perspective of being a deaf and hard of hearing student. My parents, we didn't sign, but they saw the need and the value of me having full access to the curriculum at school and making sure I had the resources so I could be successful in school. So I'm very thankful to my parents to this day still that they made that decision for me. And making a long story short, I got in there in eighth grade into the school. It was very interesting for the first time. I will never forget the first day. I was meeting other deaf and hard of hearing students, and there were other Black students at the school as well. And I remember being in the lunchroom and I had to make a decision which table I was going to sit at. Was I going to sit with the deaf and hard of hearing kids, or was I going to sit with the Black kids? And it was a real struggle for myself. And of course, I decided to go with the Black group. But I don't know if you'd heard of there was a book, it was called Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting in the Cafeteria? And there was a conversation about race at that point, and I thought it was really interesting and a really interesting experience that I had myself. And then later I learned to what I would say negotiate cultures. Um, and again, at that time I was still identifying myself as a hard of hearing kid, and so I didn't really sign well, so I didn't know that I could really sit with the deaf students and be able to converse with them. And yet sitting with the Black kids was kind of difficult as a hard of hearing kid. And I just had to really become more comfortable transitioning between the two groups. And when I graduated high school, once graduation came along and I went to college, and I went to the University of Arkansas Little Rock, there I really had my signing skills by that point, and I finally felt like even on my freshman year, I felt, oh, I could take Spanish or I could do whatever I wanted, but I sat in Spanish and I wasn't understanding anything that was going on. So my friend, actually, who is an interpreter to this day, a good friend of mine, a real good friend of mine, and this was a long time, and that friend of mine said, hey, Ernest, what's wrong? Why aren't you taking like ASL classes and stuff? And I thought, okay, I'll try that. So the next semester, by the way, my first semester of college, I didn't know very many people that first semester, and my grades weren't very good at all. I was afraid, my GPA was really bad, and I don't want to take this conversation too offline, but I will say my GPA was not that great. But my second semester, I actually took an American Sign Language class, and I was just, that was it. I was done for. I knew what I needed to do. And it was different in Little Rock compared to home because, I had this Black community that I didn't really feel a connection with, but at home. But in Little Rock, I felt more of a connection there. And that really led me to start with another deaf Black advocacy organization, which I'll talk about later. But college was really, my priority was graduating. I ended up getting 3 degrees. I got an associate's in, and then I got a bachelor's degree in history as well. And, for a person like me to get 3 degrees, my mom, I mean, she preached to me about getting a good education, and that sometimes, just reading a book is not good enough, that, every page in that book has to be read, and you really have to, because even with the Bible and things like that, I grew up, and, finally I was reading things, and I remember it was like December of 2002. I believe it was my senior year. I opened it up, and I really, um, I had a business major at the time, and things were just, I remember August of 99 to December of 2002. I had these books, and I started reading them, and I was like, oh, like, I got this degree a while ago, but there's all this history, and I just need 2 more classes to have this degree in history. Oh my gosh, so things kind of worked out for me. But, I should have listened to my mom a long time ago. But so that's kind of, how I got along with my graduations, but how I graduated with 3 degrees. And it was not easy, of course. It was not easy at all. And it's all part of my educational journey. But college was, getting those I was part of a fraternity, Phi Alpha. I was part of that fraternity, and um, that was the first Black Greek fraternity that was set up. And so I was really proud of that. And Martin Luther King um, and Thurgood Marshall and everybody, talked about the American society and looking at the culture. And this organization had deaf brothers now, and I thought that was amazing. I think there's a total of like 7 or so that are part of that fraternity, but that's all been part of my college experience, again, with the theme of being mainstreamed and transitioning between mainstream and what I was experiencing in high school and college, and then later trying to figure out like graduate school too. I realized, I had my 3 degrees. What am I going to do with them? I remember graduating, and I went home, and the first thing my dad said was, when I got home, he goes, "Okay, you got home, but don't start unpacking yet, because you got to get a job." And I was like, "Huh? What? Get a job? Uh, let me breathe first, Dad." But I had to look and look. I looked really hard for a long time for a job, and I wasn't able to find anything at first, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I remember there were some jobs and some opportunities that would have been okay, but they just weren't a good fit for me. And I felt like I sent my resume off to a couple different places, and I just felt like those jobs weren't good fits. And there was one in sales, and it would have been like I felt like communication just wasn't happening in that. And then there was a job that wanted to meet me, and I found out that this job, it was a commission-based job, and I was like, no, that's not for me. No, thank you. And then finally I decided to apply for a special school district in a county in Illinois. And oh, and I forgot to mention, I have a degree in special education. And so I was able to partner with a local education. They provided educational services. And so I thought I would apply for that. And it was a teacher's assistant's job as a teacher assistant. And it wasn't really what I thought I wanted, but I was looking for a job, and my dad was on top of me about, have you found a job yet? And I was like, Dad. And so finally I was getting frustrated. I was like looking at myself and going, what am I going to do? And looking back, when I graduated college, I did apply to some graduate schools, I remember, and there were 2 graduate programs. One was um, it was a writing program, and then there was another one that was like a history program, I believe. And the writing program rejected me. And I was like, what? I mean, I had a good GPA and everything, I thought my GPA would get me into the program, but I just felt like it was a complete insult to me. And so then the history program, I actually withdrew my application from them because I didn't want to get another degree from University of Little Rock, University of Arkansas, Little Rock. And so I decided, you know what, that's it. I'm not going to do that. I look back now, and I should have asked them, are you sure? Like, I think there was interest, but at that point I was just done. And I look back at my life, and I just think maybe it just wasn't where I was supposed to be going at that time. Maybe I was supposed to be going home to my dad, and not being able to find a job, though, was very frustrating. And I felt like I had no other options. So I remember I went into the bathroom, I closed the door, and I prayed, and I turned off the lights, and I was praying for guidance because I had invested all these years of my life. I got the education I felt I needed. I had these degrees. But I didn't know where I was going, and no jobs were popping up for me, and I didn't know what to do. And I remember I was just pouring my heart out. And once I did all that, I felt better. And I, in the bathroom, really felt like I was just having a conversation with God. And there was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Glenn. And I remember when I was an undergrad student, I worked under him. He worked with the registrar, and I worked in that office. And he was talking about future planning after maybe graduate school afterwards and everything. And I was like, nope, I decided I'm just gonna go. And he was like, okay, okay, no problem, do it your way. But I thought about Gallaudet, and I was like, you know what? There's a social work program there that's offered, and there was a lot of there was a training that could be happening. And I thought, as a school social worker, and I thought, you know what? No, I've already decided my plan. But by the time I got into that bathroom and I was praying and I was communicating, I thought, you know what? I'm going to check and see if there's anything that I can do to maybe register for that. I remember telling Dr. Glenn, no, thank you. But in the bathroom, I thought, you know what? I'm going to check this out. And so that's kind of what I did. I thought maybe social work. I remember at that time, things, when I was in middle school and high school, I didn't really have any other students. Again, I didn't really stay with the deaf and hard of hearing students. I was, with the Black students, but I had this speech therapist who was a man, and I thought maybe, there was somebody that could have made a difference in my life. And I checked, and the registration date was already past due for that social work program. So I contacted the department head, the chairperson, and I talked about the program. I said, I'm interested. I don't know if it's still possible for me to send in my application or do whatever I need that's required. And, I'd like to start right away. I have everything you need except for I needed about 24 hours to collect the information that they needed. I can get my resume and letters of recommendation, everything. I can have all that to you guys. And I got accepted. And the day I found out I was accepted was the day I was offered an interview at WSD, which I thought was interesting. And so now I'm looking to God. I'm like, all right, so now where am I supposed to go? And my parents helped, and we drove out to Gallaudet. I didn't even work that summer. I had no summer job or anything. And I got to Gallaudet, and I thought maybe I had maybe $350 to my name at that time. But I really took off there. And I actually got 2 master's degree from Gallaudet, one in social work, which I earned very quickly, the social work one. And that's the one I really wanted. But then I was thinking of the future, and I thought about management as well. And so when you're doing social work services in a school, I could see myself becoming like a student leader of some sort, some kind of academic leader in a school system or something like that. And so I knew if I wanted a really good job, I'd have to do something else. So that motivated me to get my second degree in management, my second master's degree, with an emphasis in leadership, educational leadership. And so I graduated from there, and then I looked at WSD again. And at that time, when I applied for the social work job, I also applied for a job in Illinois. So I did at Illinois and WSD at the same time. WSD had the social work position, and they made an offer first before Illinois did. And I wanted to work at a school for the deaf. That's really what my passion was. That's what my internship experience was. And I touched different schools for the deaf while I was in graduate school. I'd gone to the Ohio School for the Deaf, and I really knew that once I graduated from Gallaudet, I really felt a connection to the deaf community and wanted to be at a school for the deaf. And so I started my social work journey at WSD, at Wisconsin School for the Deaf. And so I have a great respect for them. And I remember, Scott, I worked with you and with Marla, and because I think she was the principal at the time. I have great memories from WSD, but it was really a start for me for the rest of my future.
All right. Thank you for sharing your story. And again, you had access to a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different diversity, and you were able to find a place that worked well for you and to develop your skills. And it's so important to have a great support network on your journey. And you had that in college and beyond. Now, to build your independence and to make decisions, wow, that took a lot. It's so important to trust yourself on the journey. Yes, exactly. Yep. So now on your journey and in your work today, what are you doing currently? Oh, yes, currently I'm the superintendent of Louisiana and their special ed program. So I'm on a state worker level. And so I do help observe and support and oversee Louisiana schools, and also for the visually impaired. So I do work in that. And there's 19 special ed programs statewide. And so also I do collaborate with the Department of Corrections and the Office of Juvenile. So I do work with them, and then also with the police department as well, and the Department of Health. So I do coordinate with a lot of different governmental agencies. Oh, wow, that's a big role you've taken on. That's a lot of responsibility. What are some challenges that you faced in your work? Can you expand on that a little bit? Yeah, so some of the challenges that I have while currently managing and leading through COVID-19. That's been a big challenge. It's a serious challenge. And it is a challenge with dealing with school districts and the decisions they're making, the local decisions that are being made, how we're supporting that, how we're providing support for the state systems that are in place, what that means for us and the students we serve and the populations that we're working with statewide. Also designing curriculum and also considering impacts of students. Also students who in New Orleans who have different or part of different situations like Mardi Gras. So what was that, March 11th or so? Yes, my birthday. Yes, so that was when we made decisions to close the schools and to close the districts at that time. And at the time, it didn't look good for us. We were ready to send students home the next day. It was the 13th was when we made the decision to send the students home. And then the governor also had made an announcement, an order too, as well, for all the school districts to shut down in Louisiana. And so, of course, we're all scrambling, and we had already made that decision, but it's still, there was a lot of chaos happening. And it wasn't just local things happening. It's also where the different universities, the Louisiana School for the Visually Impaired, the different parishes, the East Baton Rouge parish area. And so those areas, and also working with those students and the different parishes and the parishes in Louisiana supporting the students there, just seeing what everyone's responses are and the numbers of those students and families who have had COVID-19. Also the buildings that we work with, handling that in the Department of Corrections, supporting learning there if we need to, and also the buildings and grounds and who's responsible for taking care of those things and developing policies, and also policy alignment issues. Sometimes that can be a challenge to work through. Again, we haven't even touched curriculum. This has all been operations we've been talking about so far. All the children can benefit, of course, from good curriculum design, but now we're dealing with distance learning. We're dealing with their students are at home. The students are they're trying to figure things out. We're trying to figure things out. And of course, it's all for everyone, not just here in Louisiana, but we have taken this to the point of what we're doing in our roles and how we're making a difference, using my skills and experiences and bringing those to the table to help support all of the curriculums and organizations that are in place. Also trying to do good for the public education in our area. Yes, that parallels our experiences here at the Wisconsin School for the Deaf and in Wisconsin in general. Same thing, we're a whole new world we're experiencing. Families, parents, staff, administration. It's been a challenge for us to navigate this. I think as our time may be limited here, what we can talk about. I'm trying to see how much time we have left. Okay, so one thing that we want to do is what is a strength that you feel has really helped you, that's helped you succeed in your endeavors? Oh, well, I do want to say that having a strong support system in place is critical. I've learned through the years, especially through my experiences and my educational experience, to build connections and have the connections with the support system, and make sure you have one. Having people in your corner, that's the only way that you're really going to succeed. The only way you're really going to succeed is if you use your support system, you use it. Navigating education can be a challenge. Things can come up in your way. You need to take advantage of your family in their support. You need to be able to, your family, your church. I'm also my parents too. I was heavily involved with my church family as well. So again, growing up in that situation, having the support structure in place really has helped me navigate life and navigate my educational experiences. So different situations come up, something comes up, and I have people in my corner. I have my church people, I have my family in my corner. And so those are the things that I really value. And sometimes, like in college, of course, so often in college, I had experiences come up. It's a journey. Sometimes I get off the straight and narrow, if you will, veer off. But of course, I have those people cheering me on in the background, making there to support me if I need it. And really having that foundational level, if there is something where you end up off your path, and there's consequences you face, but of course you have people behind you to support you. You have the foundation in place to really get back on your feet and start again and to continue on that. So when I was working toward my social worker license, and even now today, I remember talking with people, getting advice of what to do. I really value that. I really value that in supporting the kids that I help with and supporting their decisions that they're making. And also consider the opportunities that students have, that families have, and supporting if they have the ability to lean in and to get the support that they need, they will be successful. And so, again, yes, resiliency is such a key word, especially even in my experiences, continuing to press on when needed. And also challenging myself, never give up, never. I remember my mom, she taught me to always stay positive, keep a positive outlook on life, on where we're going. Again, you've always got choices on how you're going to respond to a situation. You can focus on the negative, or you can find the positive things to focus on. Where are you going to lean to, and then take the lead on that. And then once you do go, don't look back. And so that's really a strength and an empowering moment. Yes, networking, exactly. Building a strong support group, teachers, family members, yes, and the like. Yes, a crucial network of support is really the key to any kind of success. And keep on and being perseverant and being resilient and getting through those challenges one at a time. And that's how do you learn? You have to make mistakes, and learning from those mistakes is such a key part of growing up. So we have one last question for you. So do you have any advice to our audience who may be deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind? Something that you have experienced that you can tell them and how they can learn from you. What's something you can share with them? Okay, a word of advice that I would give. Borrowed from a good friend who was an interpreter, and they suggested this when I took American Sign Language class. I remember the opportunity came up, and we're trying to figure out if it had applied to me. It was also having options, having the ability to make a choice. If I'm setting up my own, I'm setting up my own space, my own bucket, if you will, my own what I'm looking forward to, where I'm going to go with my plans, my career. Whatever happens from now, if students, as they're getting ready to graduate, they're thinking, oh, I'm ready to work, and now with COVID, maybe I can't, what am I going to do, or am I going to go to college? And again, there are options out there, of course, to pursue that. But again, you do have options. There are options the student can take, different ways of getting an education. There's always ways to keep your mind sharp. I mean, getting a degree, getting more than one degree in 4 years is possible. I'm proof of that. Again, if you apply yourself and work hard, you'll be able to see the results. And also find passion, something you're passionate about, something you're motivated to pursue. Something that makes you want to wake up in the morning and go and do your work and be proud of it. And so that's something, make sure you're doing something that you're passionate about. Yes, exactly. Okay, so I want to tell you again, so thank you for your time, Superintendent Garrett. We're very appreciative of your time and what you've been able to share with us today as you continue and we continue to develop too.